The girl looked at Simon Cowell from the center of that enormous stage, and in a voice that didn't waver for a single word, she said, "My mom didn't raise me. You did." Simon Cowell did not move. He did not speak. He did not look away. For 8 full seconds, the man who had an answer for everything sat completely, utterly still. Another Tuesday night taping. The Pasadena Civic Auditorium. 3,000 people packed into every seat. Cameras rolling. Lights at full. Millions watching from home. Another hopeful contestant stepping into the spotlight. Another story about to begin. Another ordinary night on America's Got Talent. Or so the audience believed when they took their seats. Simon sat at the judge's table in his black shirt, arms crossed. That familiar expression of measured skepticism settled across his face. Howie Mandel was scrolling absently through something on his phone. Heidi Klum had her head tilted toward Sofia Vergara, the two of them sharing a quiet laugh about something. The audience hummed with low excitement. Another performance. Another Tuesday. Another beginning. The girl who walked out was 11 years old. Small, certain, the kind of child who decides early how much space she is going to take up and sticks to it. She wore a yellow dress with short sleeves, hair back in 2 neat braids. Her name was Rosie Callahan. Freckles across her nose. Calm brown eyes. She walked to the center of the stage and stood there without fidgeting. Terry Crews came out to meet her with his wide, warm smile. He had to bend considerably to be at her level. "Well, hello there. And who are you?" "Rosie Callahan," she said. Matter of fact. Unhurried. "Rosie Callahan. And where are you from?" "Bakersfield, California. How old are you, Rosie?" 11. Terry grinned. "And what are you going to do for us tonight?" Rosie thought about it for just a moment, the way you do when the honest answer is more complicated than the question. "I'm going to sing," she said. "But first I need to say something. To someone at that table." The audience stirred. Terry glanced toward the judges, then back at Rosie. "Okay," he said quietly. "Go ahead." Rosie looked at the judges' table, not at all 4 of them. At one. "I've been practicing what to say for 3 months," she said. "So I'm going to say it exactly how I practiced it." She took one breath. "My mom couldn't take care of me. She tried. She loves me. But she couldn't." She paused. "And someone else made sure I was okay. For years. Without me knowing who it was. Until last year." She looked directly at Simon. "It was you." Terry Crews went very quiet. The audience made a sound. Not applause. Something underneath applause. Something that fills up a large room when people are collectively holding their breath. Simon's arms uncrossed. He placed both hands flat on the table. He leaned forward slowly. His face, for the first time all evening, had no performance in it at all. "Can you tell us what you mean?" Terry asked. Softly, carefully, Rosie nodded. "My mom is named Claire Callahan. She worked in television production for a long time. She got sick when I was 3. She stopped, steadied herself. The calm in her face didn't break, it just went deeper. She has good days and bad days. But she couldn't raise me on her own. And someone, a long time ago, made sure there was always someone there to help her. Help us." She looked at Simon again. Steady, clear. "I found out who last year. And I needed to say it out loud. I needed to say it here." She reached into the small bag she had set down at her feet. She took out a single photograph, slightly creased at one corner. She walked to the judge's table. She placed it face up in front of Simon Cowell. The room went completely still. Simon looked down at the photograph. Something moved across his face, fast, then slower. Recognition. Then something that came after recognition. He picked up the photograph. He looked at it for a long moment. And then, something happened that the cameras had never once caught in 15 seasons. Simon Cowell's hands, the hands that had pointed and dismissed and pressed buzzers and signed off on 1,000 decisions, were trembling. He stood up. He came around the table. He stepped down onto the stage floor and crouched down slightly so that he was closer to eye level with an 11-year-old girl in a yellow dress. Howie Mandel sat forward so fast his chair scraped the floor. Heidi Klum's hand went to her mouth. Sofia Vergara went completely still, both hands pressed together in front of her lips. The audience did not make a sound. Simon looked at Rosie. And Rosie looked at Simon. And she said it again, the way she'd practiced it, calm and clear and carrying across every inch of that silent room. My mom didn't raise me. You did. To understand what happened next, you need to understand what happened 8 years earlier. The year was 2017. Simon Cowell was in the middle of everything, the way he always was. Productions in 3 countries, deals in motion. A schedule that moved fast enough to make most people dizzy. He thrived in it. He was built for the pace. He had built the pace. But that spring, something slowed him down. Her name was Claire Callahan, 31 years old. 7 years in television production in Los Angeles. Segment coordination, scheduling, the work that keeps a production from collapsing. Precise, responsive. The kind of person who caught problems before they became problems. She had worked on 2 of Simon's productions through a house he regularly contracted. He knew her name. He had spoken to her perhaps 4 times. Competent and quiet. That was all he knew. What he did not know was that Claire had been diagnosed with early-onset bipolar disorder at the age of 26. She managed it. Most days she managed it well. She had a daughter named Rosie, 3 years old, a small apartment in Bakersfield. A network of childcare arrangements that worked as long as nothing went sideways. In March of 2017, several things went sideways at once. A medication change in January destabilized her in ways her doctor hadn't predicted. She missed 2 weeks of work. A missed paycheck meant a missed rent payment. The woman who watched Rosie moved away. Claire's sister had her own crisis. Her mother was 71 and not well. The net holding them up was made of thin threads. In 6 weeks, most of them snapped. A woman named Diane worked in human resources at the production house. She had known Claire for 4 years. She watched what was happening and did not look away. She called social services, family assistance programs, community funds, waiting lists, eligibility gaps, sympathy without solutions. She was at her desk one afternoon getting nowhere when Simon Cowell walked through the office for a meeting. Diane was not a woman who asked for things easily, but she understood that sometimes you ask anyway. She stopped Simon in the hallway. 90 seconds of his time. She used them. She told him about Claire, about Rose, about what 3 years old looks like when its mother is in crisis and no one is closing the gap. Simon asked one question. What does she need right now? Diane told him. A stable childcare arrangement. Rent covered for 2 months. Time for Claire to stabilize without losing her home and her daughter in the same window. He nodded. He went to his meeting. Diane assumed that was the end of it, that she had taken her shot and it had glanced off a very busy man and disappeared. 3 days later, Diane got a call from a private care coordinator she had never heard of. The coordinator introduced herself and said she'd been retained to help find a stable arrangement for Claire Callahan and her daughter Rosie. No other name was given, no explanation of who had retained her. Diane didn't push. She knew. The coordinator arranged a full-time in-home support worker for Rosie 3 days a week. She secured rental assistance for 4 months, long enough for Claire to return to work part-time. She connected Claire with a therapist who specialized in working parents managing mental health conditions, whose fees were covered by an anonymous third party for 2 years. Simon told no one. He did not follow up in any official way. He asked his assistant once 6 months later whether Claire Callahan was still working. The assistant checked. She was. He nodded and moved on. He did not think of it as a large thing. A Tuesday afternoon's work. Something obvious that needed doing. He was in a position to do it. So he did. What he did not know was what it looked like from the other side. Claire Callahan stabilized. It took time. It was not a straight line. But the support held the floor under her long enough for her to find her way back. She went back to work. She raised her daughter carefully, and with the kind of gratitude for ordinary days that only comes from having almost lost them. Rosie grew up knowing her mother had been through something hard, knowing they had come through it together, knowing someone unnamed had made that possible. When Rosie was 10, Claire told her everything she knew. She showed her the records, the coordinator's name, the dates. A paper trail Claire had quietly kept for years because she had always believed she would someday find the person to thank. The trail led to a production company, to a name, to Simon Cowell. Rosie had asked to audition for America's Got Talent the week after her mother told her. She had been singing since she was 5. She had a voice that her school choir teacher described, in a note sent home to Claire, as the kind that makes a room go quiet without trying. She had something to say, and she had found her stage. The photograph she placed in front of Simon was a picture Claire had kept from the production house. A group shot from a rap party, 2016. Claire was in it, smiling, 1 year before everything fell apart. Rosie had written 4 words on the back in careful, 11-year-old handwriting. Simon turned it over and read them. "Thank you for us." He thought that was the end of the story. Until tonight. Now Simon Cowell crouched on the stage floor in front of an 11-year-old girl. The photograph was in his hand. He could not speak. The room was so quiet you could hear the sound system humming. His eyes were wet. His jaw was tight. He was fighting himself and losing, and for once in 15 years behind that table, he let himself lose. His hand went to the back of his head. He looked at the floor for 1 moment. Then he looked back at Rosie. "I remember your mom," he said. It came out quietly. Not a performance, just a fact. "She remembers you," Rosie said. "She wanted to come, but she thought I should do this part." Simon made a sound that was not quite a word. He put one hand gently on Rosie's shoulder. His eyes closed for just a second. And then Rosie Callahan, 11 years old, yellow dress, 2 braids, freckles, the calmest child in the building, put her arms around Simon Cowell and hugged him. If this story moved you the way it moved that room, please share it. And subscribe so you never miss moments like these. The audience came apart, 3,000 people on their feet. The noise got into your chest and stayed there. Howie Mandel wiped his eyes with his wrist. Heidi Klum was crying and not trying to stop. Sofia Vergara had both hands over her face. Terry Crews looked at the ceiling, trying to hold it together. Failing, Simon stood up. He stepped back. He looked at Rosie. He nodded. She turned to face the audience. She closed her eyes. She stood very still for 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3, and she sang. She sang with the kind of voice that is not yet finished becoming itself, still growing, still finding its edges, but already carrying something that no amount of training puts there. It is either in a voice or it isn't. In Rosie Callahan's voice, it was unmistakably there. She sang without looking at the judges or the crowd. She sang to something past the back wall, to her mother watching from home in Bakersfield, to the years that had been hard and the years that had held. She sang the last note and let it go. The building stood up again. Simon Cowell pressed the golden buzzer. Gold paper came down from the ceiling in great cascading sheets. Rosie stood in the middle of it, eyes open, head tilted back, smiling so wide and so real that the cameras held on her face and did not move, because there was nothing else worth looking at. Claire Callahan watched from home on a laptop in their small kitchen in Bakersfield. She had made a cup of tea before the show started. It went cold. She did not notice. In the weeks after the episode aired, Simon made no statement. He gave no interview. He did, quietly, ask his team to look into whether the anonymous support fund that had been set up for Claire years ago was still active. It wasn't. He restarted it. He extended it for 3 more years, added a provision for Rosie's education, managed through the same coordinator who had set it up in 2017, who was still in the same job. He sent Claire one message. 3 words. No signature. It came through a third party the way everything always had. It said, "She was extraordinary." Claire printed it out and taped it to the inside of a kitchen cabinet door, where she sees it every morning. There is no plaque, no press release, no charitable foundation named after anyone, just a coordinator who still picks up when the number calls. Just a family in Bakersfield that is still standing. Just an 11-year-old girl who walked onto the biggest stage of her life. A creased photograph. 4 words in careful handwriting. And the things she had been practicing for 3 months. Some people are raised by the ones who show up. Some are raised by the ones who make sure someone does. Rosie Callahan knew the difference. And she made sure the world did too.